Your soulmate truly believed the decision was over. The marriage path had been chosen, the family had accepted it, and everyone around them was preparing for a future that no longer included you. But just when they thought there was no turning back, one buried truth from your love story surfaced, and it was powerful enough to make them question everything. Because the truth revealed that the ending they blamed on you may have been built on a lie from the very beginning. Listen carefully. Because what came to light was not a small misunderstanding. For years, your soulmate carried the belief that you had chosen distance, that you had stopped fighting, and that somewhere along the way your feelings had changed. They tried to convince themselves that marrying someone else was the mature choice, the safe choice, the only choice left. They told their family, "I cannot keep waiting for a love that may never return." But deep inside, every time they said those words, something hurt, because their heart never fully believed them. The marriage plans continued. Conversations became serious. Dates were discussed. Family members started speaking as though your chapter had already been closed forever. Your soulmate smiled when expected, nodded when decisions were made, and tried desperately to look certain. But whenever they were alone, memories of you returned with unbearable force. Your voice. Your patience. The promises you once made together. The way you understood their silence without demanding an explanation. They tried to bury all of it beneath responsibility, but some love stories refuse to disappear simply because people decide they should. Then everything changed. Someone who had remained silent for years finally came forward carrying something connected to the exact period when your relationship fell apart. At first, your soulmate did not want to hear it. They said, "Please, not now. My decision has already been made." But the person answered with words that immediately changed the atmosphere. Your decision was made using a version of the story that was never true. Your soulmate froze. What they learned next shattered the belief they had carried for years. During the most painful period of your separation, messages had never reached them. Important words had been hidden. Certain conversations had been twisted before being repeated. Someone close to the situation had allowed your soulmate to believe that you had walked away willingly, while you may have been believing something completely different about them. Two people who still cared deeply had been pushed into silence while each one thought the other had chosen to leave. Your soulmate's face changed as every old memory suddenly began making sense. The unanswered questions. The strange timing. The sudden coldness from people around them. The moments when they wanted to contact you but were told, "Don't embarrass yourself. They've already moved on." They remembered how many times they nearly reached out, and how many times someone convinced them not to. That was when the certainty surrounding their marriage began to collapse. They stood up and whispered, "If this is true, then I wasn't moving on from someone who stopped loving me. I was moving on from someone I may never have been given the chance to understand." The room went completely silent. For the first time, your soulmate stopped thinking about what the family expected, what had already been arranged, or how embarrassing it might be to change direction. They were thinking about you. They were thinking about every year lost because of a truth they had never been allowed to see. Their eyes filled with tears as they asked the one question nobody wanted them to ask. Did they ever try to come back to me? The answer was not given immediately. And that silence frightened them more than any confession could have. Because moments later, the person reached into a folder and placed something directly in your soulmate's hands, something connected to you that had been kept hidden for years. Your soulmate looked at the first few lines. And suddenly, the marriage decision they once called final no longer felt final at all. Your soulmate's hands began to tremble as they stared at what had been placed in front of them. It wasn't just an old letter. It wasn't just a forgotten message. It was proof that during the exact time they believed you had abandoned the love story, you had been trying to save it. Every line carried the pain of someone who had not stopped caring, someone who had been waiting for an answer that never came. They read slowly at first, almost afraid of what the next sentence might reveal. But then their eyes moved faster. Their breathing changed. Tears began forming before they could stop them. Because your words did not sound like someone who had moved on. They sounded like someone confused, wounded, and desperate to understand why the person they loved had suddenly disappeared. There were questions your soulmate had never seen before. Why won't you speak to me? Did someone tell you something about me? If you truly want me gone, tell me yourself. I can accept the truth from you, but I cannot accept silence. Those words hit them harder than anything else. For years, your soulmate had believed they were the one left waiting. Now they were holding proof that you had been waiting too. They looked up at the person who brought the folder and asked through tears, "Where was this?" The answer came quietly. It was intercepted before it ever reached you. Your soulmate's expression changed instantly. What do you mean intercepted? The person hesitated, knowing there was no gentle way to explain what came next. Someone close to the family had seen your attempts to communicate. They knew the relationship was not truly over. They knew both of you were still emotionally connected. But instead of allowing the truth to reach your soulmate, they made a decision for both of you. They hid it. Not once. Not accidentally. Repeatedly. Your soulmate stepped backward as though the floor had shifted beneath them. Suddenly this was no longer a story about unfortunate timing. It was not simply two people misunderstanding each other. Someone had actively helped create the distance. And the most painful part? That same person had later comforted your soulmate through the heartbreak. The same voice that said, "Forget them." The same voice that said, "They clearly chose another life." The same person who encouraged them to accept a different marriage was now connected to the reason they believed you were gone in the first place. Your soulmate covered their mouth and whispered, "I trusted them." Nobody answered. They walked toward the window, unable to face the room. Their entire future suddenly looked different. The marriage they had been preparing to enter was based partly on the belief that their greatest love story had already died. But now they were discovering it may never have died at all. It had been interrupted, manipulated, buried beneath other people's choices. Your soulmate began remembering every time your name had come up over the years. Every time someone changed the subject too quickly. Every time they were discouraged from searching for you. Every time they were told that reopening the past would only create pain. Now they understood why. The past contained answers certain people desperately wanted to keep buried. One family member finally said, "There's more." Your soulmate turned around immediately. The person holding the folder looked uncomfortable. "What more?" There was a response. Your soulmate's eyes widened. "A response from who?" "From you." Their voice broke. "I responded." The person nodded. Apparently, years earlier, your soulmate had written something during one of their weakest moments. It was a message meant for you. A message admitting they were still in love, still confused, still hoping there was some explanation for the separation. But you never received that either. Your soulmate collapsed into the nearest chair. Now the truth was unbearable. You had reached for them. They had reached for you. And someone had stood in the middle making sure neither hand ever touched the other. For several moments, your soulmate could not speak. Then the person they were supposed to marry entered the room. They immediately noticed the tears, the scattered papers, and the silence. What happened? Nobody answered. Your soulmate slowly looked at them. There was guilt in that person's expression before a single accusation had even been made. And your soulmate noticed it. Their heart began pounding. They stood up. "Do you know something about this?" The future spouse looked away. That one movement said more than words ever could. Your soulmate stepped closer. "I asked you a question." Still no answer. Then finally came a whisper. "I knew part of it." Everything stopped. Your soulmate stared at them in disbelief. "You knew?" "I found out after we became serious." "And you didn't tell me?" "I was afraid I would lose you." Your soulmate's tears returned, but this time they were mixed with anger. "So you let me prepare to marry you while knowing the story I believed about you and me might not even be true?" The room erupted with arguments, excuses, and desperate attempts to explain. But your soulmate barely heard any of it anymore. Because something had shifted inside them. For years, they were told you were the danger. You were the disappointment. You were the person who had walked away. Yet the people standing around them now were the ones admitting they had hidden pieces of the truth. Your soulmate looked down at the old message again, then they whispered something nobody expected. "I need to find them." A family member immediately protested. "You cannot throw away everything because of something from years ago." Your soulmate turned sharply. "No. What I cannot do is marry someone tomorrow while wondering whether the person I truly loved spent years believing I chose to abandon them." Silence. Then your soulmate asked the question that terrified everyone in that room. Where are they now? The person holding the folder hesitated. Because they knew exactly where you were. And what they revealed next was about to turn this buried love story into something no one in that family could control anymore. The person holding the folder took a long breath and finally said, "They never went as far away as you were told." Your soulmate's eyes locked onto them. What does that mean? It means you were closer than anyone allowed you to believe. For a few seconds, your soulmate simply stared, unable to process those words. All these years, they had imagined you somewhere far away, living a completely different life, perhaps happy without them. That belief had become the only thing that helped them survive the pain. But now even that was being taken away. The person continued carefully. There were moments when you came back. There were attempts to reconnect. There was even one time when you were only a short distance away and asked whether they would meet you. Your soulmate's face went pale. When? The date was mentioned. And suddenly your soulmate remembered that day perfectly. It was the same day someone in the family had insisted they leave town unexpectedly. The same day their phone had supposedly been lost for several hours. The same day they returned home feeling a strange emptiness they could never explain. Now they understood. You had been there. Waiting. And they had never known. Your soulmate pressed both hands against their face as the realization became too painful to hold inside. I could have seen them. Nobody denied it. I could have spoken to them. Still silence. I could have saved years of this. Their voice cracked. The person they were supposed to marry tried to step closer, but your soulmate immediately raised a hand. Please. Not right now. Those 4 words carried more distance than anything said before. The future spouse stopped. Because they could feel what was happening. The marriage was no longer competing with a memory. It was competing with the truth. Your soulmate returned to the papers and found something else tucked beneath the old messages. It was a photograph from years ago, one they had never seen before. You were holding something your soulmate had once given you, something small that everyone assumed you had thrown away after the separation. But you had kept it. On the back of the photograph was a date and a short handwritten sentence. I still don't understand why we lost each other. Your soulmate broke down. Not quietly. Not politely. Years of buried grief finally came out in front of everyone. They cried for the younger version of themselves who believed they were unwanted. They cried for you, who may have spent those same years believing exactly the same thing. They cried because 2 people had been grieving a breakup neither of them truly chose. Then something changed in their expression. The sadness became determination. Your soulmate stood up, wiped their tears, and said, "Call them." The room froze. One family member immediately objected. You cannot do this tonight. Why not? Because the marriage arrangements. My entire life has been arranged around lies. Nobody had an answer for that. Your soulmate repeated, louder this time. Call them. The person with the folder slowly reached for their phone. But before they could dial, the future spouse spoke. There's something else you should know before you contact you. Your soulmate turned around. What now? The future spouse looked devastated. I wasn't the only one who knew. Your soulmate's anger returned instantly. Who else? The answer came slowly, your mother knew part of it. The room went completely silent. Your soulmate looked toward their mother. She was already crying. That was enough. Your soulmate's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Mom. What did you know? She couldn't look them in the eyes. And that hesitation broke something inside your soulmate. Because this was the person they had trusted more than anyone. Finally, their mother spoke. I knew you came back once. Your soulmate stopped breathing for a moment. You knew? I thought I was protecting you. Protecting me from what? From getting hurt again. Your soulmate laughed through tears, but there was no happiness in it. Hurt again? I spent years hurting because I thought they didn't want me. Their mother began crying harder. I was afraid the two of you would start everything again, and I believed your life would be more stable if you moved forward. Your soulmate stared at her in disbelief. So you decided my future without telling me the truth? I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to deliver a message. This was years of my life. Nobody moved. Then the mother revealed something even more painful. When you came back, they gave me something for you. Your soulmate's eyes widened. What? She slowly walked toward a cabinet. From inside, she removed a small sealed envelope. It had never been opened. Your soulmate recognized the handwriting instantly. Their knees nearly gave way. The envelope had been sitting inside that house for years. Waiting. Their hands shook as they reached for it. What does it say? Their mother whispered, I don't know. I never opened it. Your soulmate stared at the envelope for several seconds before finally tearing the seal. Inside was one page. Only one. They began reading. The first few lines brought tears. The middle made them cover their mouth. But it was the final sentence that changed everything. Because you had written exactly what you planned to do if your soulmate ever learned the truth. And beneath that sentence was something no one expected. A place. A date. And a promise that had never been taken back. Your soulmate looked at the current date. Then looked again. Their face changed completely. Because that promise was not from some forgotten past. It was connected to today. And suddenly, your soulmate realized there might still be one chance left to reach you before this love story was lost for good. Your soulmate read that final sentence again and again, almost unable to believe what was written. If the truth ever reaches you, and if any part of your heart still remembers us, go to the place where we made our first real promise. I will never stop believing that one day the truth will bring us back there. For a moment, nobody in the room moved. Your soulmate looked at the clock. Then at the envelope. Then back at the people who had spent years telling them your story was finished. And something inside them became completely clear. They were no longer willing to let fear, family pressure, embarrassment, or another person's expectations decide the rest of their life. Their mother whispered, "What are you going to do?" Your soulmate slowly folded the letter and held it against their chest. "What I should have done years ago." The future spouse stepped forward with tears in their eyes. "So this is it? You're leaving everything because of one letter?" Your soulmate looked at them with sadness, not cruelty. "No. I'm stopping everything because this marriage was built on a decision I made without knowing the truth." Those words silenced the room. I cannot stand beside you and make a lifelong promise while another part of me is wondering whether the person I truly loved was taken out of my life through lies. The future spouse lowered their head. They knew there was nothing left to argue. Because deep down, they had always felt that part of your soulmate's heart belonged somewhere else. Your soulmate removed the engagement ring slowly. The entire family watched. They placed it carefully on the table. No drama. No shouting. Just one painful, undeniable truth. This marriage cannot happen until I know what really happened between you and me. Their mother began crying. "I'm sorry." Your soulmate looked at her for a long moment. "I love you. But I may need a long time before I understand why you believed protecting me meant taking away my right to choose." Then they turned toward the door. Someone asked, "Where are you going?" Your soulmate answered without hesitation. "To find you." And for the first time in years, your name was not spoken like a memory. It was spoken like a destination. They drove toward the place mentioned in your letter, carrying every emotion at once: anger, fear, hope, regret, and the unbearable possibility that they might already be too late. Every traffic light felt endless. Every minute felt like another lost year. Their mind replayed everything. Your unanswered messages. Their unanswered message. The day you came back. The hidden envelope. The people who had interfered. And one question kept repeating inside them. What if you stopped waiting? When they finally arrived, the place looked almost exactly as they remembered. The same quiet surroundings. The same corner where two younger hearts once promised that no matter what happened, they would always tell each other the truth. Except they had never been given that chance. Your soulmate stepped out of the car. Nobody was there. Their heart sank. They walked slowly toward the exact spot described in your letter. Nothing. For several seconds, they simply stood there, staring at the empty space. Then tears began falling. "Of course," they whispered. "Why would they still be here after everything?" They looked down, finally allowing themselves to accept that perhaps the truth had arrived too late. Then they heard footsteps behind them. Your soulmate froze. They did not turn immediately. They were almost afraid their heart was creating something that wasn't real. Then came a familiar voice. A voice they had not heard in far too long. You finally got the letter. Your soulmate stopped breathing. Slowly, they turned around. And there you were. Older. Changed by life. But unmistakably you. Neither of you moved at first. There were too many years standing between you. Too many unanswered questions. Too much pain to erase with one embrace. Your soulmate's lips trembled. I thought you left me. You looked at them with tears already forming. I thought you chose to let me go. Your soulmate shook their head immediately. I didn't. Neither did I. For simple words. And suddenly years of misunderstanding collapsed. Your soulmate began crying harder. I waited for you to come back. You answered softly, I did come back. I know now. I wrote to you. I know. I tried more than once. I know. Every I know broke another piece of the wall that had been built between you. Finally, your soulmate stepped closer. I'm sorry I believed them. You shook your head. And I'm sorry I eventually believed your silence. For a while, neither of you tried to fix the past. You simply allowed the truth to exist between you. Your soulmate then said something they had been afraid to admit even to themselves. I almost married someone else because I believed our love story had already ended. You looked at them quietly. And now? Your soulmate took a long breath. Now I know it never received a fair ending. There was no instant promise. No unrealistic declaration that every wound had magically disappeared. Because real love does not erase years of pain in one moment. But sometimes love deserves something even more powerful than a perfect ending. It deserves the truth. It deserves a second conversation. It deserves a choice made freely. Your soulmate reached for your hand slowly. This time nobody intercepted it. Nobody spoke for either of you. Nobody decided what was best. It was simply you and them. Two people finally standing inside the truth. Your soulmate looked into your eyes and whispered, I cannot give us back the years we lost. But if there is still something here, I don't want to lose another day because of someone else's decision. You squeezed their hand. And for the first time after all those years, neither of you needed someone else to explain what the other person felt. You could finally ask each other. You could finally listen. You could finally choose. The marriage your soulmate once believed was final never happened. Not because they ran blindly toward the past, but because they finally understood that a lifelong decision should never be made while the biggest truth of their heart remains hidden. The family eventually had to face what their interference had caused. Apologies came. Some were accepted quickly. Others needed time. Trust had to be rebuilt. And your soulmate learned one painful lesson they would never forget. Love can survive distance. Love can survive time. Love can even survive silence. But when other people control the truth, two hearts can spend years grieving something that never truly ended. And now, with your hand in theirs, your soulmate made one final promise. No more hidden messages. No more people speaking for us. No more assumptions. If something hurts, we ask. If something changes, we talk. And if anyone ever tries to separate us with another lie, they look directly at you. They will have to face both of us this time. That was the moment your love story truly began again. Not where it had been interrupted. Not as the two people you used to be, but as two people who finally understood what they had lost, and exactly how carefully they needed to protect what had returned. Because sometimes the biggest truth does not destroy a love story. Sometimes it arrives just in time to save it.